past videos, I have blathered on at some length about using Linux on the desktop, but not if you're a gamer. Well, when I recently took a look at Linux gaming in 2025, it's a lot better than I thought, and I'd like to take a few minutes to get you caught up too. If you, like me, thought that Linux was not much of a platform for the gamers among us, you may be pleasantly surprised. We'll cover the compatibility layers like Proton and Wine, and those awesome handheld Linux gaming devices. Windows users may understand that video games were traditionally run on a Windows PC or on a specific game platform, like an Xbox or PlayStation. These devices are different, and the games need to be written specifically for each one. While Linux can and does run on the same hardware as Windows, it will not run native Windows apps or games unless some technical accommodations are made. With me so far? So first up, let's talk about the game changers, literally, Proton and Wine. If you're not familiar, Wine has been around since the 1990s, and is essentially translates Windows API calls to ones that Linux can understand. Think of it like a translator that helps Windows software communicate with Linux. Wine is an acronym for Wine is not an emulator. But the real revolution came in 2018 when Valve released Proton. Proton is built on Wine but with gaming-specific enhancements, and it's integrated directly into Steam as Steam Play. One cool thing is that the community has built a handy resource called ProtonDB, where players rate how well games work through Proton. Games get rated from borked, totally broken, to platinum, meaning it works perfectly. This has been hugely helpful for knowing which games you can play without hassle. When Proton first launched, Valve certified just 27 games as working perfectly. Now, thousands of Windows games run great on Linux, often with just one click. Games like Doom 2016 and even Cyberpunk 2077 can run surprisingly well. You still need higher-end hardware to run these so-called AAA games, but many of them will work and be playable. There are still some challenges, though. Games with anti-cheat systems like BattleEye can be problematic on Linux, although Valve has been working with developers to fix this. But honestly, the progress in just the last few years has been impressive, particularly when you consider how small the Linux desktop market share is, and that's an important consideration for the next section. Now, what about games that are made specifically for Linux? As of 2024, there were several thousand native Linux games on Steam alone. That's pretty impressive. The tricky part is that while the absolute number has been growing, the percentage of new games coming to Linux has actually been dropping. Back in 2017, about 22% of Steam games had Linux versions. By late 2022, that was down to around 10%. Why the decline? Well, ironically, Proton might be part of the reason. When games run well through Proton, developers have less incentive to make a native Linux version. Why spend the resources on a small market when Linux gamers can just use Proton, right? That said, there are still some fantastic native Linux games out there. Titles like Stardew Valley, Factorio, and Civilization 6 all have proper Linux versions and run beautifully. The indie and strategy game scenes are particularly strong on Linux. Now for what might be the biggest Linux gaming success story, handheld devices. The Steam Deck launched back in 2021 running Steam OS, which is Linux-based and has been a bit of a revelation. The Steam Deck can play both Windows games and native Linux games through Proton, all in this slick portable package. The OLED version released a while back took things to another level with better battery life and a gorgeous screen. What's cool is that these types of devices have introduced Linux to a whole new audience who might never have used it otherwise. People who just wanted to play games suddenly find themselves using Linux and actually enjoying it. So where does this leave us in 2025? Gaming on Linux is in this fascinating place right now. On one hand, you've got Proton making thousands of Windows games playable, even if native Linux development might be slowing down as a result. On the other hand, Linux-powered handhelds are bringing the platform to more gamers than ever before. The Linux market share on Steam has been hovering around 2% for a while now. That may not sound like much, but it does represent millions of gamers, and the numbers keep growing slowly but steadily. If you're thinking about making the switch to Linux, as a gamer, I suppose there's never been a better time. Between Proton, those 4,000 plus native games, and devices like a Steam Deck, you've got options that simply didn't exist a few years ago. So do we have any Linux gamers out there? Did I state the case fairly? Anyone thinking about making the switch? Hey, let me know in the comments below. So that's another video in the can. If you found this informative or interesting, please consider liking and subscribing down below. And remember, be excellent to each other.